music plays, we'd like to invite you to close your eyes, simply relax, rest in the presence, and hold space.
Ganapataye namo namaha. Ganapataye namo namaha. Ganapataye namo namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadhura Hamare. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadhura Hamare. Ganapataye namo namaha. 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 Omega Dantaya Vidmahi Vakrajundaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayat. Ganapataye namo namaha. 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 Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadhura Hamare. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadhura Hamare. Ganapataye namo namaha. 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 Om Vakratundaya Mahakaya Suryakoti Samabhava Nirvigyam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Ganapataye namo namaha. Ganapataye namo namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Suklam Bharadram Vishnu Sasivarnam Chaturvujam Prasannavadanam Dhyaye Sarvavignyopashantaye. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Gam Ganapataye Namo Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari. Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Gam Ganapataye Namo Namaha.
Namaste. Welcome to our weekly online satsang. Satsang is a Sanskrit word that means community of truth. So we're talking about a spiritual community of two or more people who come together to share their path of awakening and the flowering of the heart in oneness with the divine. So, we're so glad you're here. Yes, well, I have to respond to John right away. He says, I loved your prayer from Sunday's service. I plan on using it daily. And thank you for that. Incidentally, the Sunday service and the teaching was on the authority of the believer. And there's a list of affirmations that are drawn directly from Scripture that invoke angelic intervention in really powerful ways. And John pointed out to me that I talked about authority versus power and how a railroad or a traffic cop has the authority to stop a semi-truck, but not the raw power to do it. And I called it a 16-wheeler. Well, John corrected me, it's an 18-wheeler. Okay, back to tonight. So we're so glad that you're here. It's important to join together with others on the path. We strengthen one another. And we're living at a time where humanity faces so many crises. And the way forward is, waiting for my, there we go. The way forward is for the collective consciousness of humanity to shift from competition, conflict, and war to cooperation, harmony, and peace. And for that to happen, a certain number of individuals on this planet need to become awakened from the illusion of separate consciousness and duality into oneness with the divine, with all that is. And we're seeing progress in that direction. So join together with others. If you can find a group locally that you resonate with, a meditation or prayer group, a blessing group, the best. We share in our satsangs, and we're sharing it with you right now, the Flowering Heart Blessing, Hridaya, Vikasa, Diksha, which is another Sanskrit name that means flowering heart blessing. But it's a gift of grace and love and light directly from the divine source to catalyze awakening in the receiver. If you're already awakening, it hastens the process and dissolves blocks. If you're an awakened being, it will just take you deeper, because awakening is not a destination. It's a constantly unfolding and expanding journey. So please join us in sending the Flowering Heart Blessing. If you're new to this, you're receiving it right now. And if you connect with this energy, with this presence that we're sharing, then just invite the divine to pour it through you, to let you be an instrument of grace, and hold the intention that all those who view this webcast tonight and all who view the recording of it at any time in the future will be touched by the Flowering Heart Blessing and the awakening grace that it imparts. We like to open these satsangs. Well, I guess I should mention that I seem to be alone here tonight. Well, we're never really alone, right? But yeah, Suzanne is on a 10-day girls trip with her sister and our youngest daughter and our niece, grandnephew, grandniece. I don't know if I left anyone out, but she's out on the West Coast in Portland now. And she won't be with us tonight or on Wednesday here at our in-house satsang, or next Monday night. She'll be coming back a week from tomorrow. So pray that I survive. No, actually, time alone can be a very a blessed thing. Maybe a touch lonely, but we get to really have some time to ourselves to examine our own lives and intentions and where we want to go. which is definitely with Suzanne and with the divine. So we like to open these to questions and answers on the spiritual journey. It could be anything about meditation, awakening, God realization, past lives, anything you're experiencing in your process. If you've had a major breakthrough, we'd be happy for you to share it. You can just enter it right into the chat on Facebook Live or at Vimeo. I check there as well. And to give you a few minutes to ask that still small voice inside, if there might be a question you could ask that would inspire the conversation tonight. While you're doing that, I'll share with you a little article and a list of quotes from an article on inspiringquotes.com. This little article on 10 quotes to help you find joy in everyday moments was written by Paula Bennett. Paula Bennett is a writer based in Brooklyn, New York. She writes a fortnightly newspaper that treasures the mundane called Small Histories. You can find her on Instagram at Paula Bennett. Thank you for yet another delightful article and collection of quotes. So it begins here. As human beings, we're drawn to routine, predictable itineraries for our daily lives. Routines and habits can help us organize and prioritize our tasks and responsibilities, but they also offer comfort and stability, serving as anchors in a world that keeps changing. When we sink too far into routines, however, we may struggle to find the things that make life unique and fulfilling. Authentic joy, creative inspiration, or motivation toward our goals, for example. These things are not just nice, but necessary. In a 2021 survey, more than 80% of respondents defined inspiration as crucial to life, more important than even sleep or intimacy. We might think that these moments of vision or delight are extraordinary, occurring sparingly or only under certain circumstances, but in reality, inspiration is available to us in every moment, even or perhaps especially in the mundane ones. If we pay attention and are willing to see goodness in small instances as well as big occasions, we might find more inspiration in the day-to-day than we expect. To that end, we've gathered quotes from musicians, writers, and other luminaries on the extraordinary joy of ordinary moments. Start small. You never know what you'll find. So here we go. Exquisite beauty is often hidden in life's fragile, fleeting moments. John Mark Green, poet. Watching a perfect goal, the rustling movement of light through leaves, a phrase of music from the window of a passing car, life offers up these moments of joy despite everything. Sally Rooney. Sometimes the most happy people in life are the ones with nothing. We can't lose sight of the little things in life that should make us the happiest. Ryan Cabrera, musician. There's always a sunrise and always a sunset, and it's up to you to choose to be there for it. Put yourself in the way of beauty. Cheryl Strayed. When it's over, I want to say, all my life was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. Mary Oliver, poet. I still get wildly enthusiastic about little things. I play with leaves. I skip down the street and run against the wind. Leo Buscaglia, writer. Steal from anywhere that resonates with inspiration or fuels your imagination. Devour old films, new films, music, books, paintings, photographs, poems, dreams, random conversations, architecture, bridges, street signs, trees, clouds, bodies of water, light and shadows. Jim Jarmusch, director. If people sat outside and looked at the stars each night, I'll bet they'd live a lot differently. Bill Watterson, cartoonist. Today's goal. Remember putting on glasses for the first time? When suddenly the trees had individual leaves, the moon had defined edges? Try to see through that clear lens everything as it is. Look around you and marvel. Maggie Smith, poet. Wherever you look, there are inspirations. Books, literature, paintings, landscapes, everything. Just living is an inspiration. Gavin Rossdale, musician. Sure. So, okay, questions. We have one. Ekaterina mentions, and incidentally, John said he loved the prayers from Sunday service, the affirmations that bring angelic intervention. That's posted on my Facebook profile page. Where the recording of the teaching is, there's also a posting I made of the actual affirmations if you'd like to use them. Ekaterina says, I will miss Suzanne's delicious meals. Yes, no doubt, already. And More asks, can you speak about ascension? Well, certainly, it's one of my favorite things. There are different senses of the use of the word ascension in spiritual circles. Probably the most common is from the Christian religion in reference to the ascension of Jesus. As the teaching goes, the story goes, after being crucified and resurrecting, Christ hung around for some weeks, appearing to his disciples and blowing their minds. And then he gathered a whole bunch of them, hundreds, on the Mount of Olives, and he ascended before them, and it says he was received up into the clouds, into heaven, and disappeared from view. So in that sense, ascension is the actual physical body becoming higher and higher and higher in frequency until its form dissolves in oneness with the Spirit. And what Christ ended up with was a body that is both spirit and form. But, so in that sense, ascension is the catching up of the physical body to the light, to the highest heaven. And there are other words, the Christian faith, the Catholic and Orthodox teach about Mary being assumed into heaven, um, and, uh, and so taking her body with her. But that's the main understanding, would be the ascension of Christ. But these days in spiritual circles, the raising of our consciousness to higher levels is often referred to as the path of ascension, the ascension of consciousness. I mean, even it has to begin with awakening and with the frequency of one's own consciousness rising to higher and higher and higher levels, which does bring about transformations in the physical body. Potentially in yogic traditions like in India and in Taoism in China, there are stories of yogis reaching immortality by transforming their bodies into pure energy that transcend death. And that is an aspect of ascension. In a humbler way, well, we have some dear friends who are monks and teachers of a path called Ishaya's ascension. Ishaya is a Sanskrit name for Jesus. And so Ishaya's ascension, the path, is the ascension of Christ. And these teachings were the understanding of the Ishaya's teaching is that John the Beloved, Saint John, went to the Himalayas after the resurrection and ascension of Christ and brought these special teachings. And by applying the practices of Ishaya's ascension, one would experience an ascension in one's own consciousness from the gross to sublime to unity with the divine. So that's what I can tell you about ascension. We're all of us who are on the path of spiritual awakening and transformation are on the path of ascension. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be caught up into the spirit with your physical body intact. It's happened. In the biblical account, this was the case with the prophet Elijah. With many, many witnesses, he was physically taken up before their very eyes and with his body. So, you never know. Any other questions? We've got a few minutes, although we could always just jump right into the intent blessings and the light meditation and have an early evening. I wouldn't mind. Okay. I put it in a certain way. I suggest that everyone ask the still small voice within if there's something that you might share that would facilitate the satsang, that would be an inspiration for our spiritual conversation. And I think sometimes we just don't ask. We look and don't see anything. But if you ask your inner divine, more often than not, you'll get an answer and a question. So it's not too late. You could feel free to do that. And Mori writes, I feel that all religions and spirituality are sacred wisdom school. Well, that's true. Indeed. At their best, religions are, in their essence, definitely sacred wisdom schools, although sometimes superficial religion is degenerated into belief systems and dogmas and rituals and rules. But all of that came out of a sacred tradition that formed a school to transmit to its followers. And Sacred Wisdom School, I think, is also the name of our friend Doug Bentley's ministry these days. So, sacred wisdom schools, definitely. Michael Christopher writes, what should I do if my prayers feel... Keep going off the page. What should I do if my prayers feel hollow when I pray? They seem more like repetitions. Well, I guess that's where faith comes in. Prayer is a very natural communication between your soul and the divine that's rooted in a relationship. And it's not like praying to some entity that we don't know, that we don't have a connection with. So the deeper the connection, the deeper your fellowship with the divine, the more your prayers are likely to feel full of presence, full of light. But faith also is defined in Scripture as the perception, the direct perception of things that are not revealed to the senses or to the mind. Faith perceiving as real fact what is not revealed to the mind or the senses. So you could be praying in faith, the certainty that you have a connection with God, certainty that God is hearing your words, certainty that God will answer your prayers, and feel absolutely nothing, have no sensory experience at all, nor anything in the mind. And sometimes those are the deepest prayers. The Catholic tradition calls that dark faith, when you're just going in naked faith without any sense or any mental concept. Faith perceiving as reality what is not yet revealed to the senses or to the mind. So keep going. Faith isn't based on what you feel. It's based on the promise of the divine, that when you call, I will answer you. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. When you seek for me with all of your heart, I will be found by you. Call unto me and I will answer you and show you great and hidden, mighty things. So I would just take the divine at its word and realize too that prayer isn't all words. The original language of the divine is silence. And often just resting in the presence, which is a way of defining contemplative prayer, is a way of communicating with the Spirit, because without any words, without any images, the divine is one with you and feels what is in your heart and responds in silence by inspiring your heart. And you don't even know when it happened or how it happened, but you just find that you have a certain peace and clarity about something. So, just keep going. John Lewis writes, when I had my spiritual experience, at a point, I felt being pulled upward and a one-way trip. The only thing I held on to was staying for my son. So that dovetails into ascension. In a sense, when any of us dies and passes on, if we have a connection to the light and we're through with being here and our karma in this present life and place, people experience themselves often rising toward the light. Like John said, a one-way trip. Many of the great masters say, if you rise all the way and merge with the light, you're not coming back again into this life. That is another aspect of ascension. Ekaterina writes, is it true that drugs and alcohol can make demons go inside of the people that is in those frequencies? Well, yeah, I'd say more about it. I mean, there's so many different kinds of drugs, so I don't know what you're talking about. And if you're talking about ethnobotanical plant medicine or toad medicine, DMT, these things are considered sacred medicinal substances in various shamanic traditions. And they would object to them being referred to as drugs, okay? But there's so many other kinds of drugs, you know, and in general, drugs tend to put holes in your aura. Very often, psychedelic kinds of drugs, because they create such a blast that suspends the ego for a time, will leave people with big holes in their auras. And it's true that entities, and not always benevolent ones, malevolent entities can take advantage of those holes in people's auras. There are also certain of those plant medicines that have spirits, the medicine spirits, the plant spirits that operate through them and with them, and sometimes people take on those entities. It just doesn't sound very desirable to me. Alcohol dissolves resistance. People would do and say and open themselves to things when they're high on alcohol that they wouldn't under normal circumstances. So it can serve as an occasion for seducing manipulative spirits to gain advantage and get in people. So yeah, it's probably better to avoid drugs and alcohol. That said, St. Paul said to Timothy, take a little wine for your stomach's sake. Timothy had stomach problems, and the water in the area he lived was really was not good. It was tainted. And so Paul said, take a little wine for the sake of your stomach. Jesus shared wine with his disciples. It's part of the sacred tradition of the Hebrew people, the Passover meal. Again, we have to make distinctions. And again, when it comes to drugs, there are so many different kinds. I mean, there are drugs like heroin and cocaine and fentanyl, all bad. And all open people, not just to chemical addiction, but to spirits of addiction, and can cause real trouble. So stay away from illicit drugs. Even the more psychotropic medicines should only be done with a qualified and very wise spiritual teacher, a guide, who can see to it that you're protected during that shamanic journey from the intrusion of entities. Okay? More writes, is it eclecticism or ecumenism? Well, I'm not sure what it is, but hang on. So eclecticism is mixing a lot of different things together. I suppose we're an interfaith ministry, so we combine things at our spiritual center, certain practices that we have learned in India, the Chinese Taoist internal alchemy and meditation practices of Qigong and Nuigong, amazing stuff. Certainly Christian contemplative prayer and other kinds of meditation. And so people might say, well, you're eclectic, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But in the beginning of the spiritual journey, it's usually best to find one spiritual practice that you really devote yourself to. Maybe in time, if it's your calling, you might open to exploring, well, in the beginning, to find the one that feels right to you, you might explore various different traditions and forms of meditation and prayer and practice. Ecumenism means to build one house. It refers to the movement of bringing together various denominations to work together as one. It's most often, but not always, used in the Christian world to describe ministries and works, organizations that would bring together, for instance, Catholics and Eastern Orthodox and Protestant followers of Christ to work together with the recognition that there's just one house of God, that there's just one body of Christ, and we're all part of it, and we should work together to build one edifice, the temple not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. So they're both very different words. Ecumenism is a very beautiful concept. I've heard it used in reference to different religions working together. We have in our community here in Clearwater, they're now called the Hope Villages. They used to be called Religious Community Services. And it was an ecumenical, and still is, ministry to the poor, the homeless, the hungry, the needy, and with the involvement of leaders of various religions, Jewish leadership, Christian leadership, other groups. I assume that the Islamic community is probably involved, although I haven't had much to do with that group in recent years. But that's a kind of ecumenical work that brings together diverse spiritual communities to work as one. Any thoughts on the state of the world, like the Olympics controversy? Wow. Yeah, I have so many thoughts about it. The world is in quite a mess. I don't think any of us need convincing. We are in such a state of division. And the words of Christ were that a house divided cannot stand. And this world is so divided politically and philosophically and spiritually that it seems like we're teetering on the edge more than maybe we ever have been before. At the same time, in order to build a new house, sometimes the old structure needs to be torn down, needs to fall. And so it is in spirituality, in looking at the world, we can see structures that need to go. The overemphasis on competition and conflict and violence and war is destroying us. And so many of the structures that house those unhelpful aspects are in the process of tumbling, so that a new society can emerge that's rooted in cooperation, harmony, and peace. So Christ said, I didn't come to bring peace. And on the surface, that's shocking, because the Prince of Peace, peace on earth, goodwill toward humanity, said, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword of division. He said that a man's foes will be those of his own household. And when I was doing a teaching last month, a house divided cannot stand, that scripture struck me. And I meditated on it, and Jesus was quite right. When we take a step toward the light, or to embrace a particular mission in our life that we feel passionate about, it's often members of our own family that oppose us. I remember I felt years and years and years and years ago, like 40 years ago, a powerful call to Bolivia to do ministry in the high Andes and in the Amazon, in some pretty dangerous places. I mean, I was in La Paz, Bolivia, when tanks were rolling by in the streets and bombs were going off and bullets were whizzing by us, and and there were coups going on, and my mother was just terrified for me. And she didn't want me to go. And she said, there are so many people to save in the United States. Why do you have to go to South America where it's so dangerous? You don't need to do that. And I said, well, because I'm being called to do that. And I knew somehow that all would be well. I just knew in my heart that if I answered that call, that I was protected by divine grace. In fact, if I'd listened to my mother at that point and gone, oh no, I'm scared, I better not do this, I'm going to just stay home and play it safe, I might have died in a car wreck the next day. So sometimes, I think the most dangerous thing is not answering the call of the Spirit. The safest thing is to follow the call of the divine, even if it takes you into the most dangerous place imaginable. Mahatma Gandhi walked right out in the battlefield with at warfare. He was right in the middle of it, bullets whizzing by. And talking about no armor, that guy ran around half naked with a loincloth most of the time. Anyway, he had no fear at all and was not struck. And he knew it. He knew that he was absolutely safe that day in that place. And then a number of years later, one of his own security team assassinated him. That day he wasn't safe. Jesus himself had an experience. He was teaching in somebody's house, and they said there was a commotion at the door, and they came and said to him, your mother and your brothers and sisters are at the door, and they want you to come out and talk to them. And they thought Jesus had lost his mind. They thought if he kept going the way he was going to get himself killed, and they wanted him to stop this crazy ministry he had undertaken. And his answer to this room full of disciples is, who are my mother and my brothers and my sisters? Who is my family but those who hearken to the will of my Heavenly Father? So those are some reflections without diving into the politics of all those things that are going on. I'd be interested to know what you're thinking about the Last Supper in that context. John writes, Christ turned water into wine. He was also called a drunkard, among other things. Yeah, but he wasn't, was he? Unless intoxication with the joy of the Spirit could be called being drunk. It was definitely part of their tradition. And yes, he turned water into wine. And the scriptures also caution against, alcohol abuse. So you have to take it all in and you'll kind of get it. But that was pretty controversial. Jesus was invited to a wedding, and they ran out of wine, which was a terrible thing at a wedding feast. So his mother, Mary, came to him and said, help them. Give them more wine. You can make this happen. And it was a little bit premature, but his mother had a way of getting him to do what she wanted. And so he had them fill these big jugs, clay jars with water, and he turned them into wine. And when the steward of the feast began to pour out that wine, people marveled and said, usually people serve the good wine first when people are fully sober and they can really taste it. And then they save the cheap stuff for last when nobody really notices. But not this guy. This wedding feast, the very finest of the wine was saved for the end. And that's really metaphorical of our human lives, and especially our spiritual walk with God. Whatever blessings you've experienced up to this point, the best is saved for last. So hang on, there are good things ahead. No, he wasn't. That's right. He was not a drunk. He was accused of being many things. Indeed. He was accused of being a sorcerer. He was accused of being the friend of prostitutes and drunkards and tax collectors and criminals and all manner of undesirable people. Because great men of the Spirit, let alone the Son of God, are not afraid to be in the company of the most broken human beings. They're the ones who need the light most. Jesus said there's more rejoicing in the presence of God over one lost soul that's gone astray and comes home than there is over the 99 righteous that never stumbled and fell. There's more joy in the presence of God over that one wayward soul that comes home. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, thank you. You rescued the discussion. All of you. That was great. Now it's time to close our eyes and open your heart to the presence. Deep within you dwells the very divine source. The fullness of the Godhead lives within you. This is one of those mysteries that's hard to comprehend. The poet and the mystic Rumi said, "You're not just a drop of the ocean of God. You are the entire ocean in a drop. The outer world is but a reflection of the world that lies within you. And all throughout that world is the presence of the divine. And the divine source is radiantly present at the center of your being. It is pure, unconditional love. That means there are no strings attached to the love of God for you. Religion has presented a judgmental God that's watching over your shoulder, keeping a score, ready to punish. We're often told in various churches and religious groups that there's separation between us and God, that our sin has separated us from the light and that we must be saved from that gulf of separation to live in the light and to enter heaven. You know, that is so distorted. The Apostle Paul said, and he said this to a group of pagans. He said to this amphitheater full of pagans that in God, we all, including those pagans, we all live and move and have our being. Paul said, we are all the children of the Most High. In Him we live and move and have our being. And that God of pure, unconditional love loves you regardless of your faults and your failings. Just as a parent would love its child, even if the child falls, if the child makes a mistake. The parent doesn't want to harm them and cast them away. The parent wants to heal them and bring them home into the light. And this divine presence who lives in you knows what you need more than you do and yearns to bring you home. There's an attraction, divine gravity, we call it love, that's drawing us all into the center of God's embrace, at the center of our being. Just let go. Allow the divine to take you in its loving arms and draw you into the center, beyond the illusions of separation and distance. There's no distance between you and God because you live in God. Nothing exists outside of the presence. All of that sense of darkness and duality is in the mind. And the divine yearns to dissolve that veil, to illuminate your heart with the light of awakening into oneness within yourself, with the divine, with others, with all that exists. Just receive it. Drink it in. Breathe it in. Soak it up. It's pouring out to you. It's pouring out within you. Let the divine fill your heart with the light of awakening. It will begin to flower and shine out of your heart into the outer layers of your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, all that programming, and dissolve it. The divine wants to dissolve the wrong thinking, the destructive emotions, the destructive programming for happiness that cannot possibly succeed, and replace it with divinely inspired thoughts, ideas, feelings, and plans. It shines out into the physical layer, the outermost layer of our being, to bring healing to our physical bodies, to dissolve the blocks, the diseases. Christ said, if your eye is single, your body will be filled with light. Receive that light that's shining out of your heart, shining through the mental and emotional layers of your being, shining into the physical layer of your being. Receive that healing presence. Let it be healed. Let the presence dissolve the pain, the disease. It shines further out beyond the physical boundaries of your human being into your relationships. When the light begins to flower in your heart and shine out through all the layers of your being, it will shine into your outer relationships to set them right, to heal them, to fill them with light, to draw to you healthy, loving relationships. And to shine through your life, your relationships, out into the world. It ripples out through you into infinity to bring light and grace, healing, inspiration to all the people surrounding you in the world. Just allow the flowering heart blessing to unfold. Keep receiving. It's not, at this moment, no need to ask or to plead. Just receive. Now imagine that we're sitting in a circle together with our eyes closed. Lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and let us invite the divine presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through each and every one of us to all the others in the circle. You don't need to know how. The divine knows. Just consent to the presence. And it starts to flow through you to all the others, and it's flowing back to you through them. Now imagine the beautiful blue planet Earth in the middle of our circle. And let us set our hearts on the Olympics and ask the Divine to flood those circumstances with light, peace, to put an end to all hatred and violence. That humanity may be a house undivided. Sports has always been one of those arenas where we could all come together and lift high the torch of light and truth. Let us hold in our hearts all the hot spots of war and violence that are burning all over the earth, burning in the hearts of people filled with the passion of anger and hatred and violence. And let us take a strong intent and ask the Divine to melt that fiery passion of anger and hate. Dissolve the violence. Scripture says God makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow, he snaps the spear, he burns the chariots of war and fire, that there may be no more. May love arise in the hearts of all of humanity, for we are family. May we awaken into oneness and answer the call of Spirit forward in oneness in the light. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Now you could relax your hands, rest them in your lap, and open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with me as we dive into the light meditation. In this meditation, I'm flooded with oceans of light, love, peace, grace, the divine presence. It shines through every part of my being to you, especially through my eyes. Mystics have called eyes the windows of the soul. So just keep gazing at my eyes, and the light streams through my eyes into your eyes, into your heart of hearts, causing the fires of divine love and the light of awakening to grow brighter and brighter and brighter looking world. There's nothing for you to do in this meditation, but just keep looking at my eyes and receive. Close your eyes now. Meditate with me for a few more moments as the grace settles within you. Now keep meditating as long as it feels nice to you. And/or find a place to lie down nearby, on your back, in Shavasana. Shavasana is a yoga pose. You just lie comfortably on your back with your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides with your palms open, turned upward. And just let yourself dissolve in gratitude and presence. Love you so much. So glad for these times we have together. Look forward to doing it again soon, and know, until we meet again, that the divine in me beholds the divine within you, and I bow to you. Namaste.